On the Road, Part 1. Careful! Caution is advised. Beware. This film is fucking unbelievable.
There's a few more warnings, Daddy, before we can fuck.
If you're a smart monkey rather than, say, a stupid monkey, you'd better download, save, share, and distribute this film before it's taken down, removed, banned, or even worse, goes fucking viral. Sadly, because the world has gone mad. I should respectfully and politely and perhaps even cordially warn and caution you, the viewer, not to watch this adult film, but you really should. Oh yeah, can I stick it up your bum?
Oh, Daddy.
Warning. Before you watch this film, please finish or stop masturbating. Whoa, now you're ready. Ce court-métrage d'animation est dédié à Christine Cheredijou, l'amour de ma vie, ma muse artistique et créative, mon inspiration intérieure, mon tout. Je t'aime. Je t'adore. Des bisous. Here? Just here? On the X, yes? Just not if. Great. I'm on the spot. In the zone. Pumped up. Revving my engines. Are you ready? Yes? Just nod if you're... Okay, that's definitely a head shake. It's a no. So, if I understand everything correctly, you'll say action, and I'll start reading the auto cue above my head, right? Just nod if I'm right? Great, okay. Are you ready? Yes? Great. I'm ready. I'm Professor Terry Martin Mace, and this is part 1 of my unbelievable true life story and my adventures and journeys through the universe beyond space and time. What bullshit. Who wrote this shit? If you're ready, we can begin. But please, be careful. You might find yourself in an emotional landslide where cascading Claymation alphabet letters become a health hazard or danger. Ooh, you didn't see that coming, you fuckers. So, if I've understood everything correctly, you, the director, want me to start talking when you say action. Just nod if I'm right. Good, okay? And I stop when you shout cut. If you're easily offended, easily upset, slightly brain damaged at birth, or you've been hit in the head by a baseball, or if you're just a stupid monkey, you may become aware after viewing.
Fuck me hard, Daddy.
I will... Ooh. I've enjoyed fucking your arse, but now we should really concentrate on my story. When Roadkill Weekly asked me if they could make a short film about my extraordinary, amazing, and unbelievable life, my first question to the director was, can I smoke a joint on the set? Of course not, she said. That would be illegal. She could clearly see that I was disappointed. So, when she said, but you can certainly hold one, I said, wow. Sadly, we rarely ever get what we ask for or what we truly deserve. So, after I'm finished holding this plasticine chocolate Yule log, I'll smoke a real joint, because that's just how I roll. I once had to fill in a form to tell the DVLA that my campervan was now off-road. The form said I'd need to tick the off-road box. However, I ticked the wrong box. Nothing happened. Sometimes, whatever we do, life doesn't work out the way we'd originally planned. So, when that happens, human beings need to learn how to adapt, move forward, and turn those lemons into lemonade. Perseverance, commitment, dedication, and a pursuit of excellence nearly always goes unnoticed. However, if you're always looking for others' approval, acceptance, or agreement, you'll do fuck all. Now, I know what a lot of you will be thinking. You'll be thinking, artificial intelligence can't even spell words or letters correctly. However, you'd be wrong. I like this title. It's uniquely mine. I was 12 when I first read On the Road by Jack Kerouac, and everything that you're about to see and hear happened, regardless of how disbelievable or unimaginable. Well, most of it anyway. Un mouton, deux moutons. So, as the director, do you think that we will fuck again? Obviously, it's optional, but quite honestly, I've had a hard-on ever since you gave me a big verbal direction. Mm, mm, mm. Ooh, wow, this weed is strong. Woo. I'm just asking so that I understand everything correctly. But when you say, don't swear, use profanity or be demeaning to stupid monkeys, I guess you're not a big fan of free speech. The problem, as I see it, from an existential, philosophical, psychological, and fear-based psychoanalysis. And I'm just stabbing at shadows in the dark here, but it would seem you're scared. 1000 moutons, 2000 moutons. How about this compromise in regard to my use of profanity, swearing, and derogatory or demeaning remarks and comments about stupid monkeys? How about I just say what the fuck I want? All right, Mr. DeMille. I'm ready for my close-up. 1 million de moutons, 2 millions de moutons. T.P. Jim was the first philosopher I ever met. Jim had 2 wives, 5 children, 4 dogs, 6 cats, and 350 kilos of prime cannabis bud growing wildly in his attic, next to his duck gun. Jim's philosophy was simple. He told me he killed ducks so that they didn't overpopulate the decreasing marshland, explaining the realities of all sustainable life. But at 50, Jim died. He just died. 1 milliard de moutons, 2 milliards de moutons. I heard about Jim's death from the local rag obituary, and it was tough to comprehend. Then, at 54, I had 2 heart attacks. That's when I finally understood life is very, very fleeting. I've always known that the universe could not have been designed, created, or invented by aliens, gods, or a loving universe. I know this because, if it had, weed would be free. Truth. Sometimes, I'm just on the road. It's amazing who you meet. I wasn't always a professor, philosopher, psychoanalyst, psychologist, counselor, coach, therapist, healer, or shaman. I've been many things. For a time, I was also a prophet. I've been Healthy, sick, poor, rich. Actually, I've been very rich, a millionaire no less. I've eaten from bins, begged on the streets, and thrown myself upon the mercy of strangers. I have lived. I have stood on the edge of active volcanoes, swam with dolphins in the Atlantic. I've talked to kings, met the famous, and made love to some of the sexiest women alive. I've also smoked lots of weed. The sixth philosopher I met was Jeff Hudspeth, and the reason I'm giving you his full name is so that you can find him on YouTube. I knew Jeff when he was building the Hudspeth steam bike. Truth. Jeff was an extraordinary engineer, motor mechanic, and all-round incredible inventor and creator with so many different skills, talents, and abilities that he could make anything. Jeff taught me lots. Because of Jeff, I trained as a motor mechanic and kept my own camper van on the road for years. Many times, Jeff helped me to mend the van, and I also repaired cars so I was able to earn a living. Being on the road, as opposed to, say, well, being off-road, ultimately gives one's cracked, broken, and wounded life a chance to heal, to mend, to be with one's self. There's no GPS in my van. Truth. Sometimes I use a map. Sometimes the stars, sun, or moon. I've even been known to flip a coin. Whichever way I choose to navigate my life's journey is now up to me. Can you say the same? Please don't get me wrong. I understand how difficult life can be. However, one of the most important things that we can do to make our lives much better is to get up off your fucking arse. Often, when I was working with a client, I'd jump up straight out of my therapist's chair and shout out as loud as possible. Obviously, without disturbing the neighbors, I'd shout out, "Bananas." Everywhere I travel, I set up a mini university. I try to help those who wish to learn about the real world. Sometimes, I'll find a really great student, but mostly, I teach stupid monkeys. I continue to teach, as best I can, stupid monkeys. It's a dirty job, but someone has to do it. I used to work for the council. My job was to collect the dog shit. I've smoked a lot of shit. When the director from Roadkill Weekly explained to me they'd like me to do several scenes in a bar, I asked the director if I could drink my own urine instead of alcohol. Moon. When faced with an uncomfortable silence, I have often found that staring directly into the other person's eyes, intently, for several long minutes, will elicit one of three possible reactions. Sometimes, after you've looked deeply into their eyes, they will either want to fight you or fuck you, but mostly, it's both. They will either become your friend, your enemy, or both.
He's alright, the prof. Always something to say. Clever as fuck. I mean, really, really, really fucking smart. The other night, we had a quiz. The prof won every single fucking prize. 1,000 pounds. The punters went apeshit, bottles, glass, cake everywhere. So he gave them his winnings. Yeah, cool. I once saw the prof kung fu fighting with a bunch of lads, just quietly having a fucking drink at the bar. The prof jumps up at least 20 foot into the air. He fights them and shouts, "I'm alive."
Really, I'm just a wise, old fool.
To be honest, I've only met the bloke once. Seemed eccentric to me. I've seen him, down in the mushroom woods, foraging, scurrying around the undergrowth, like a rat, on acid, but I don't gossip, off the record. If you were to ask me, to speculate as to what he was doing in the mushroom woods, I'd have to take a wild guess and say he was getting happy. But I don't gossip. Again, off the record. If you were to ask me if you should believe anything that the professor says, especially his crazy mad stories and tales, no, I'd have to say no, but I don't gossip.
Since the dawn of time, Mother Nature has provided humans with everything they ever needed to heal themselves, feed themselves, and provide them with warmth and shelter. And what have we done? I've met them all. The great ecologists and tree huggers, Sir David Attenborough, David Bellamy, Joanna Lumley, and Spike Milligan, the man whose headstone reads, "You see, I told you I was ill." The third philosopher I met was Spike. He was a military mercenary for hire. He'd come back to the UK via what he called the back door. To be honest, I thought he was talking about anal sex. When I've ingested magic mushrooms or fly agaric toadstools, my whole mind becomes active. In several clinical, scientific, and psychological university studies and research papers, lies, truth. Spike force-fed me my first fly agaric toadstool while he fucked my sister on my bedsit floor. I was unconscious and in a suspended state of animation and coma for 3 days. I remember living on Mars. My intergalactic journeys and adventures have slowly become something of a letdown. You see, ultimately, everybody has to come back down to Earth. In my case, part of me is still on Mars. Sex is not only natural to all animals, but also to our own primitive animal species of almost exclusively stupid monkeys. Mostly sex, for the stupid monkeys will, on average, be quick. Because of my training as a tantric sex therapist and fuck coach, I've perfected and to some extent mastered the art of sex. Normally I fuck for 6 days, stopping on the 7th day to shit, piss, and eat. Sigmund Shlomo Freud wrote that sex was 10% friction and 90% fantasy. And since taking my mushroom medication, I'm starting to have some fantastic and erotic visions. Oh, WOWSER.
I want you to fuck me. Please, fuck me.
I was once a shaman, a healer, a magician, an actor upon the stage of life. Now, I'm a hermit, a wanderer, a traveler and journeyman, walking on the winding, twisting path of life. What a lot of fucking bullshit. Most days, I'm completely out of my box. I'll be open and honest and 100% integral and authentic. If you'd had my life, you would also need drugs. Lots of drugs. Lots of drugs. Judgments are easy for the stupid monkey who is so blind that they have no awareness of the realities of life. Coffee is a drug, tea is a drug, tobacco, Coca-Cola, sugar, chocolate, alcohol, all drugs. When you look up at the starry night sky, it's easy to see how gods came into existence from the natural, cosmic, and universal phenomena witnessed and recorded long, long ago, before we went mad. Before I died 7 times, clinically, I was dead for around 5 to 7 minutes each time. Before I died, sure, yeah, I had a faith, belief, hope, and a childlike naivety and trust in a loving universe. Then, one day, it was gone, all gone, disappeared, out of sight and mind, cleansed from my heart. I've tried many times to speak to the devil, as well as all the so-called gods and entities. And because not one of the fucking bastards has ever returned my emails, text messages, or Facebook friends requests as a rational, logical, analytical genius, I must conclude that no one's home. The second philosopher I met was Bacchus, a self-styled spiritual tarot-reading guru with a chic, trendy, and very cool wine bar and restaurant. He taught me how to read the tarot cards. Bacchus was so pleased with my progress, learning the tarot, that he gave me my very own 5-card Major Arcana tarot card set, and he taught me how to use it. For many years, I used those cards. Of course, one thing led to another, and before I knew it, I'm working as a platform medium and psychic, the youngest in the UK at that time. I was also working as a street performer during the day. Over the last 50+ years, I've studied, belonged to, followed, or been part of every single major and minor religion, spirituality, and faith in the world. In essence, I'm a theologian as well. My father was a writer, poet, a broken and botched man and human being. My mother was schizophrenic and was institutionalized when I was a child. When she left, Father taught me how to play chess. By 10, I'd already won several chess tournaments. But the first time I beat my father at chess, he didn't take it well at all. I guess, like most people, he was only okay while he was winning. When I was 7, my schizophrenic mother tried to strangle me to death. I'd dressed up as Superman and jumped down the stairs directly in front of my mother, who reacted out of fear. Fear is a natural, primitive, and evolutionary biological genetic reality. So, to deny or hide one's fear or fears often leads to mental health issues. I know this because I have lived in fear. My sister Amanda lives in Bulgaria with her husband Marty. They wanted to get away from the rat race and superficiality of life. She's got lots and lots of chickens. Chickens are great philosophers. Woo, chickens. I spent 3 years in New Zealand milking 1,500 cows, twice a day, 7 days a week. While I was living and working there, I became a shaman, something that I never expected to ever be. I lived in New Zealand with my second wife Heidi. She had an accident on the farm, which caused a head injury. I went to see a Maori shaman to get her healed. He laughed and said, "You do it, Mr. Shaman." Christine, my companion, friend, and lover, understands me. She knows that I'll always, always love her. However, she also understands I'm dying. Life's a bitch, and you can either live or die. I'm trying each and every single day to get myself out of bed, get dressed, get washed, have a shit, and begin living each and every moment in the moment, moment by moment. Christine helps me stay alive. Ooh, what an absolute joy. I've kissed the Blarney Stone. I've flown on Concorde at supersonic speed. I've been buried alive by Australian Aboriginals in mud. And, a few years later, I also buried my first apprentice alive. I've lived in Japan, Ireland in a fabulous castle, lived and traveled all across the USA, lived in Hawaii, Spain, Italy, Greece, France, where my companion Christine is from, and I've lived in Oz. What a ride. I've traveled 4 times around the world. I've walked on glaciers, mountains, frozen lakes, dried up riverbeds, in the Nevada desert, watching scorpions bathe in the sun, and I've loved it all. I was diagnosed with cancer, contracted 3 life-threatening viruses, crashed my motorcycle 3 times, and was told I'd never walk again. Last year, I had my 7th heart attack, but I'm still here. After my mother died, I had a nervous breakdown and spent 10 days in a psychiatric hospital. I remember thinking to myself, if I don't get myself out of this place, I'm gonna be here until I die. The biggest problem for me while I was in the psychiatric hospital was that I was smarter than those who were supposed to be taking care of me at a time of great distress and unimaginable anguish. Most days, I'm just glad to still be alive. On bad days, I stand in the wilderness, holding my head in anguish. Many people who I've both known and cared deeply about, or to whom I felt a connection, have died and ceased to exist. I now face death daily head-on, and I'm okay with that. And I'm still here. WOWSER. However, eventually, everybody dies. Everybody will cease to exist. There never was a plan, a roadmap, a compass bearing, or star to guide you. Life, all life, has always been meaningless and hopeless. I've been married legally twice, had 3 wild pagan handfastings, parented several children and 2 of my own, engaged in over 60 relationships, had around 350 jobs, several careers, and 200 homes. I've made love, had sex, and fucked women, men, trans women, trans men, transvestites, and several small farmyard animals, which, upon reflection, wasn't much fun. However, sex is just sex. I was a shoe salesman, a shoemaker. I worked in a tannery, which made the leather for the shoes. And eventually, I worked as a window dresser, displaying the shoes in the shoe shop window. I was a professional kite maker, specializing in Japanese fighting kites, which I'd enjoyed flying, while I was in Japan learning kung fu and making a samurai sword just like in T's Kill Bill. I've been an actor, mime, puppeteer, musician, dancer, juggler, stilt walker, clown, Father Christmas, been on TV, the radio, and on stage in the theater. I've also been a unique inventor and artist. I was a performance poet, and I met John Cooper Clarke when we shared a joint backstage at Glastonbury when I was working with Arabella Churchill, Sir Winston Churchill's granddaughter. Sometimes when I look back over my creative, artistic performance and musical life, I realize that all of my childhood pain, trauma, abuse, and violence has, ultimately, made me a genius. My psychiatrist, Bob, told me I had high-functioning autism, borderline personality disorder, sociopathic, narcissistic, suicidal ideation, as well as being a manipulative, controlling cunt. I was a thief, liar, cheat, con man, fraudster, a narcissist. Well, I'm still a narcissist. However, I manage myself better than before. I'm also a high-functioning autistic man with an IQ of 275. I was once arrested for murder, and I marched with Tony Benn and Michael Foote at a CND peace rally. I mimed to 3,000 people in Hyde Park. Oh, and yes, my IQ is way more than 275. Truth. I was trained to survive the harshest natural environments by an ex-SAS Special Forces operative. I spent several weeks in the forest, bush, and wilderness with this extraordinary human, two men together. I was professionally trained and instructed in the arts of longbow and compound bow, archery, one-on-one, up, close, and personal, by an ex-British gold medal winning Olympiad. Doug was great. I invented things when I was a child after my mother got taken away to the madhouse. My first attempt was an alarm from my bedroom door, so that I'd know if my two sisters had been in my room. The fourth philosopher I met was called Snake, but I just called him David because, well, that was his name. Snake loved, well, snakes. He had two rattlesnakes, and he also loved Cohen's songs. I've grown to understand why David, liked Leonard Cohen's songs. If you really listen to the lyrics and poetry within his songs, you just can't help hearing his pain. I've helped a lot of people to heal their pain, and I've also assisted them to reinvent themselves or recreate themselves again. Often, just the smallest, simplest micro change can free you. I invented a tin opener, or can opener, as some call it, which could detect a can of worms before it got opened in error. It emitted an audible alarm saying, "Worm warning, worm warning." But wait, there's more. For a limited time only, and the clocks are already ticking. If you buy just one worm warning can of worms detector, you'll receive another totally free. Yes, 100% free, no charge. As an inventor, I got to do some amazing things, like meeting Trevor Bayliss, the inventor of the wind-up radio, or meeting Sir Terence Conran and Sir Clive Sinclair. Oh, and yes, Sir James Dyson. I know that by now, most of you watching will already be convinced that my story is just fiction, and that any facts ascribed by myself are simply the ravings of an old man who's lost the plot. I was once a hero, a healer, a magician, a monkey, with 1,000 faces. Since my many, many deaths, I've chosen to now take off my mask. What you now see is what you now get. Truth. However, I assure you these truths, of which I now speak, are my truths, and mine alone. And whilst I have changed a few things here and there, and added a flavoring of creative license, everything I've shared is most certainly, almost, true. At least that is from a philosophical frame of reference to personal ethics, values, and morals. In other words, I'm either a liar or not. It's never easy to know exactly how to finish any tale, any story, any real-life drama. However, I'm going to attempt completion rather than perfection. In this sense, my story has an end. I've done my very best to share with you a few things, several concepts, ideas, and philosophies, which, if you apply to your own individual life, in your own way, you might just find your life. Of course, as with any journey and adventure in life, if you don't step outside your comfort zone, then you'll never ever evolve, change, grow, or develop. In fact, you'll most likely stay stupid. It's a terrible burden that I carry on my shoulders by being smarter, brighter, and more intelligent and aware than you will ever be. Sadly, most, if not all, of what I've shared will be lost. Sometimes, keeping life simple works best. Take, for example, the idea of the empty mind in Buddhism. What absolute madness to pretend, delude, and convince yourself that your mind can be empty. If your mind was empty, you'd be dead. However, Carl Gustav Jung proposed that to discover the darkness within our minds, we need to shine a bright torch into every nook, cranny, and corner. Of course, if you've lost or misplaced your torch, forgot to replace the batteries, or even worse, you never had a fucking torch in the first place, well, you're pretty much fucked. Sorry. Let's blow away another great myth and belief. That is, the idea that you and everyone on this planet have rights. What a lot of bollocks. You are a stupid monkey to believe such lies. What rights do you think you really have? The right not to pay tax, no. The right to kill yourself and still have the life insurance pay. Your inheritance to your family. No, you have no rights. TP Jim taught me about animal rights, and now I understand that, as most stupid monkeys act like animals, it does make perfect sense not to give them any animal rights. Sadly, the truth hurts. When Jim died, I was working on an irrigation drilling rig, drilling holes, filling the holes with polymer, then the irrigation tube, to drain the water off the cliffs to avoid future tidal corrosion. As I finished the last hole, it occurred to me that all I had done was slow down time, not stopped it dead in its tracks. The cliffs would eventually crumble and fall back into the sea. That's life. Albert Camus, a French existential philosopher, said, La lutte elle-même est suffisante pour remplir le cœur d'un homme. Il faut imaginer Sisyphe heureux. And if you don't understand French tough shit, it's difficult to always be the smartest person in the room, building, city, country, world, and ultimately the universe. However, I humbly wish that wherever you journey next, it will be goody. Let's fuck.
Let's fuck, Daddy. Touch me. Fuck me.
Now I know what a lot of you will be thinking. You'll be thinking artificial intelligence can't even spell words or letters correctly. However, you'd be wrong. Roadkill wheelie can be spelt lots of ways. And who really needs, wants, or craves to see a dead fox crushed, flattened, and quite frankly totally delicious in a curry? Even though I asked the AI to generate a dead fox, you've got a live one. Truth. Whilst conceptualizing, creating, and making this short animated film, I began to realize that as a genius it might be good to register and purchase the domain name www.roadkillweekly.com. Truth, www.roadkillweekly.com will become live sometime in the very near future, and my special fox curry recipe can then be downloaded from my website at www.roadkillweekly.com. Delicious. This short animated claymation, AI-generated film was only made possible by the generous gifts of dead meat, raw flesh, and various entrails and guts from Roadkill Weekly. I've eaten a lot of things in my life. However, one of the best meals I've ever cooked and tasted was fox curry. I gutted it, skinned it, butchered it, and finally cooked and ate it. Delicious. And now, a word or two from our sponsor, patron and lifetime subscriber to Roadkill Weekly, my fucking psychiatrist and nemesis, Mr. Bob. Bob, as he likes to call himself, used to be a TV host. Fuck me. I'm Bob. I'm Big Bob. I'm Bob. 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 Hello, is anyone there? Anyone at all? Oh. Oh dear. Oh my. I think I've shit myself again. Nurse? Nurse. Oh, shitty bomb! This animated film was made by Professor Terry Martin Mace, and even if I do say so myself as Professor Terry Martin Mace, I think I did a really good job explaining life in around 45 minutes. Yay! As a compassionate, kind, loving, and generous of spirit sort of man, the following important and necessary information should be considered a parting gift of my profound intelligence and words of wisdom. If you've been affected, either emotionally, physically, or mentally, by anything you've seen, heard, or experienced, I'm glad, because every small, insignificant, stupid monkey needs a helping hand. Truth. If, however, you're just the same person after watching this film, then you're probably either dead already or never really ever going to fully comprehend that you're actually just stupid. Truth. Now that you've finished watching my film, please feel free to start again, or resume any form of masturbation, clitoral, or penis stimulation that you fancy. I'll join you as well. Oh God. Now I know what a lot of you will be thinking. You'll be thinking, artificial intelligence can't even spell words or letters correctly. However, you'd be wrong. I'm offering you some free bonus content. The following free bonus content is a very short animated film called The Interview. It's the foundation and original inspiration for this much longer animated film on the road. Please enjoy. Everything you are about to see actually happened. Well, almost everything. Life is stranger than fiction.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for your friend and mine, MR, Bob. And now it's time to laugh with B.O.B. Tonight we interview the mad professor who talks to Chips. Yes, that's right. He talks to Chips.
It's chimps the professor speaks to, not chips.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man who talks to Chips. Chips or chimps? Who gives a shit?
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Professor, let's talk about chips. That was my last ever show. I work in a museum now. My boss says I'm a relic, a dinosaur, and an antique.
That was my last ever interview. I spend my time writing and making films and animations. My wife says I'm a brilliant creative genius.
I'm Bob. I'm Big Bob. I'm Bob. Hello, Is anyone there? I think I've shit myself again. Nurse? Nurse! This animated film was made by Professor Terry Martin Mace.